Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Foreman, and this is the Rusty Yeti. And there's a lot of people looking at this board, online. This board was released last year by Rusty, and immediately it perked up a lot of interest of the Rusty customers, especially people that knew about Rusty's larger boards. Rusty has a great larger board, like kind of higher volume foam, following from the Rusty Desert Island to the Rusty Moby Fish. And when this thing came up on the radar, everybody started, oh, what's up with the Yeti? What's up with the Yeti? Not a lot of information out there on it, other than it came from all those boards, from the DNA of all those boards, but then it just sort of leaves you hanging there as far as like the information available online. We came about this board just in an absolutely backwards set of circumstances at the Surf Expo trade show in Florida. One of the boards that was in their booth, and we were looting their booth, taking their entire booth home with us. This ended up being in our bounty of what we took from the show, and so we took it home. I didn't have a board to ride, like we had a really good south swell, and I didn't have a board to ride like for better waves. So I took this board, put a tail pen on it, waxed it up, and took it out. And it ended up actually being one of my favorite boards this winter for better waves. For the absolutely easiest way to boil it all down is just because it works in better waves. And I'm talking, like we're talking about better waves. We rode it on the small side of it, clean, stomach high, and then on the bigger side of it, head and a half, and really barreling, and then even some bigger sets than that, not as hollow, but like just the bigger end of the spectrum. Why does this board work well? For one, there's nothing radical going on about it. It has a really smooth outline going into just a moderate rounded pintail. So when you look at this board, in the written literature, it talks a lot about, hey, it comes from the DNA of the desert island, of the Moby fish, of the big cat, and a lot of boards with smooth outlines forward. This board brings it into a nice conservative round pin. It has a very moderate single concave to double concave bottom shape, and it has a relatively flat deck, so there's not like a lot of thickness in the middle and then no thickness on the rails. It's actually pretty flat to right about here, and then from here it breaks off into like a moderate thickness rail. And so what that does, the flatter deck makes it really positive for laying on and paddling on, and then also standing up, like not having that crown makes the board really confident when you're using it. Also, when you may look at the thicknesses of these boards and be like, wow, that's really thin for that volume. The reason being is that thickness goes from the center line of the board out to about here, and then it starts tapering off. So, typically if you're looking at a 6.8 that has 42 liters of volume, you're immediately going to be thinking, oh, that's got, it's got to be 2.75 or 2.82 or something like that, where this board is 2.68. So it's like a whole notch down from 2 3/4, another eighth of an inch thinner, but still with that same volume. So in surfing the board, really good paddle speed as far as like getting around in the lineup, or if there's sets coming, getting out to where that set's going to break. Great paddler as far as catching waves. This board like has an extra gear to get you into waves that you're not going to catch on other boards in your quiver. But also I'm just making it easier. Again, like with this winter being as cold as it was and spending a lot of time in 5 mil wetsuits, like having any paddle advantage is definitely a plus. But then also on the wave, super confident. The first time I rode it was actually backside free falling. You grab pig dog barrels, and it was when you get a board like this that you've never even thought about before, then all of a sudden you're put in a situation like that. It's a good test of like how the board's going to handle better waves. And the very first wave I got on it was a great wave. So I was like, hey, this thing's definitely going to work. So ended up surfing it a lot this winter. So it's a unique board, I think, in that there aren't a lot of good boards in this size range. Like stock on these boards is 6.8 up to 7.6. They do make customs up to 8.0 or even larger if you want to. But it's just a great single, quote unquote short board. With everything going shorter, like to get this sort of volume, and you're typically talking about a lot shorter and thicker and wider, and it may not be something that you're used to. Like if you're coming off of more of a classic style shape and you're looking for something to replace it, or if you you like a longer rail line and more drive out of your turns, this is a really good board to look at, because typically when you get to something 6'8" now, there's not a lot of boards out there that are this combination of dimensions and feel and smoothness. You get into a 6'8" and it's typically a supersized, it's normally your board that you would have been getting a 6'4" in, but supersized to 6'8", so it's for somebody that's 100 pounds heavier than you are. So that combination of dimensions and feel makes it, I think, unique in what's out there. So as far as what it's going to work in, we talked a little bit about that earlier. It's going to work in better waves just because of the conservative dimensions of the board and then also the tail shape. But in a pinch, even set up as a tri-fin, it works in pretty average waves. You're going to run into the board feeling a little bit long before you're going to run into the board feeling underpowered. So it'll still generate good speed in those small waves, but if it's like small and hollow, it'll start to feel a little bit long before it'll feel underpowered. We did ride it as a quad, and that helped in those sort of waves as well, just to generate a little bit more speed. But loaned it out to a bunch of people, kind of all around my size, and for those people that would appreciate a board like this, and everybody came back, saying really positive things about it. So it's a rusty Yeti, and it was on your radar with just a general non-informative release, but hopefully this review helps you kind of understand it a little bit better. I'm definitely stoked on it, and definitely a board I'm keeping in my quiver for sure. If you have any questions about the Yeti, you can give us a call at the shop, 252-987-6000, or you can check out our website at realwatersports.com/surfing.